To order. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll? Oh, take your time. I should have paused.
Trustee Eater?
Here.
Trustee Levin-Jacobson?
Here.
Trustee Taglia?
Here.
Trustee Wesley?
Here.
Trustee Straw?
Here.
Trustee Enya?
He's hoping to be remote, if we can make sure he has the link.
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry?
I've got to wait to log in.
No worries.
President Skaman?
Here. Sorry, I was just learning that. I don't know, actually. I did not see his message, sorry. All right, but he does. You have to make sure he has the link.
He didn't respond to me yet. If he has the link, just asking if he does or not. I'll make sure he has it though once he responds.
Okay. So then when he does arrive, we can make it an announcement then that he's here remote via our protocols, okay? All right. So at this point, we do have a quorum, and...
I'm here.
Oh, hello, Chibi. How are you?
I'm okay. Hey.
No worries. Okay. So Trustee Enya is joining our meeting this evening for reasons within our protocols. We're moving forward to an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Entertain a motion to approve minutes from the Tuesday, February 24th, 2026 regular meeting of the Village Board. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Minutes have been approved. Do we have any non-agenda public comment this evening?
Yes, we do.
Okay, if you'll please proceed.
Jessica?
Hi, my name is Jessica Kumar, and I live on the 600 block of Winona. Thank you for your service to our village. I am here on behalf of the Center West Oak Park Neighborhood Association asking, as my neighbors David Osta and Mike Week did on January 27th, and as you'll hear from others tonight, for you to schedule a study session to examine a 60-foot maximum height standard for Rush Oak Park Hospital. We believe if Rush Oak Park Hospital proposes new construction near our homes, and that construction exceeds 60 feet, it should be required to come before this board and the relevant commissions for approval. Today, Rush can build near our homes up to 80 feet on Winona and up to 125 feet on Maple in Wisconsin without any public process or board approval. At this time, Rush is not subject to a public process until it goes over those heights. 80 feet is nearly 3 times the height of our homes, and 125 feet is over 4 times the height of our homes. We are not seeking to stop Rush from building. We are asking for a reasonable and transparent process, one that considers the interests of the village and the surrounding neighborhoods when large-scale development is proposed next to our homes. The proposed change would only add one additional step in the approval process if Rush seeks to exceed a 60-foot height standard near residences. I am appealing to the entire board and to President Skaman especially, who has always promised a fair process. We have been waiting long enough, and now is the time for the process to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruno?
Hello, my name is Bruno Graziano, and I am a unit owner and president of the Condominium Association at 621 South Maple. After demolition of the four small residential buildings that previously existed at 601 through 615 South Maple, our building now sits at the south border of Rush Oak Park's hospital's valet parking lot. Under the current zoning rules, the hospital could build a 125-foot building there without seeking any approval from the village or the neighborhood. With a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units having average sales prices under $200,000, 621 South Maple represents the kind of middle housing that the village board has sought to support in recent years. In addition, even though the building was built over 50 years ago, it was ahead of its time in that it's 100% electric. The building's current population includes senior citizens, some younger persons owning their first home, as well as several renters. I'm appearing this evening in support of the comments of Jessica Kumar and others from the neighborhood surrounding Rush Oak Park. Due to its location, 621 South Maple would be directly impacted by the construction of a 125-foot building next door. Consequently, I'm asking the board to help support this existing example of middle housing by following through on its June 2023 motion calling for a study session on requiring Rush Oak Park Hospital to seek approval of any future construction taller than 60 feet. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
David?
Hi, everyone. David Osta, 620 Winona. I don't have any prepared remarks, and I've tried to be exceedingly polite and nice over many years. I'm kind of frustrated as I stand before you tonight. There's no fair process in place for something that the board in June of 2023 voted 7-0 to do. I don't know how things work with the board, but I'm sure that the process to get something that was voted on 7-0 should be able to move forward in 33 months. I've asked you nicely, some of you individually. I've asked through text, through all kinds of means that I could find to make sure that you knew that we were really still interested in this issue. Nothing has happened. Nothing. In fact, you've not gotten back to me. I don't get it. You voted very clearly to say you wanted to study lowering the height in the Rush Oak Park Hospital District. I just want a fair shake, and it shouldn't take 33 months. And don't come back to us and say that it's going to take a few months to get it organized. That's ridiculous, too. It doesn't. The staff is well aware of the issue and has studied it closely. So I ask you for action, again, maybe a little less nice than usual. I know some of you weren't even on the board when this happened, but you're well aware of the issue and could easily be briefed on it if you would just move your own process forward. I don't know how it happens, but I'm waiting and expecting something from this board, even if to give me the privilege of saying, we're not going to do what we voted to do 7-0. Thank you.
And Michael?
Mike Week, 626 South Maple Oak Park. David said everything pretty much that I had to say, maybe even a little nicer, given the experience we've had. I would just point out that the board is in charge of this village. It directs, as it did, the staff. It sets the agenda. We vote on and we select each of you to represent not just our interests, we recognize it, the interests of other residents and the businesses that call Oak Park home. We expect that we will receive the fair process that was to have started 33 months ago, and we would expect that it would happen shortly. I don't think that's asking too much. I think any of you that have spoken to us privately or otherwise would have to say that we have been patient, we have been respectful, we haven't asked you to do anything other than follow through on the direction that you gave staff. You do not need staff to come back with recommendations at this point. You can set this for the study session as it was laid out or fleshed out in the motion, and then during that process, staff could and should be heard, along with the hospital, along with the residents that are most dramatically are affected by this. Thank you.
That's all? And nothing on another topic, right? Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. Yes, you've been exceedingly patient. Yes, you've been very polite. I've enjoyed getting to know some of you, and I know that at this point you're very frustrated. I'm aware I don't have the details that I can share tonight, that we are working on at least being able to respond, and we remain empathetic to your situation and remain in constant contact with Rush. So we'll hopefully be able to get back to you with what that looks like soon. Okay? Thank you. And what we would not have done is permitted actual development to happen before resolving this. And so that is something I can tell you I still would never let happen. Okay, thank you for coming in. And we do have 2 proclamations on the agenda this evening. The first, I would entertain a motion to approve a proclamation honoring the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr.
So moved.
Moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by trustee Enya and seconded by trustee Leving Jacobson. I've asked trustee Corey Wesley if he would please read this proclamation aloud for me, for us.
Honoring the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr. Whereas Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr., civil rights leader, Baptist minister, and 2-time presidential candidate, passed away peacefully on February 17, 2026 at the age of 24. And whereas born in Greenville, South Carolina on October 8, 1941, Reverend Jackson rose from the constraints of segregation to become one of the most influential voices for justice, equality, and human dignity in modern American history. And whereas Reverend Jackson answered the call to service during the civil rights movement, working alongside the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in carrying forward the work of nonviolent protest, economic justice, and voting rights after Dr. King's assassination in 1968. And whereas in 1971, he founded People United to Save Humanity, PUSH, later the Rainbow PUSH Coalition, advancing economic empowerment, educational opportunity, corporate accountability, and civic participation across communities of color and working families. And whereas through his historic campaigns for the Democratic nomination for president in 1984 and 1988, Reverend Jackson expanded political participation, registered millions of new voters, and built the Rainbow Coalition, grounded in the belief that people of every race, faith, and background could find common cause in the pursuit of justice. And whereas his words, most notably the call to keep hope alive, became a rallying cry for those who felt overlooked, undervalued, or unheard, and reflected his enduring belief that democracy is strongest when it includes the voices of the poor, the working class, and the marginalized. And whereas throughout his life, Reverend Jackson also worked beyond our borders to advocate for peace and secure the release of detained Americans, demonstrating a commitment to diplomacy grounded in human rights. And whereas in recognition of his decades of moral leadership and public service, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2000, the nation's highest civilian honor. And whereas even in the face of serious health challenges later in life, Reverend Jackson remained active in civic engagement efforts, encouraging participation in the democratic process and standing in solidarity with movements of equity and inclusion. And whereas leaders across the nation have ordered flags to be lowered to half-staff in honor of his life and legacy, recognizing his lasting impact on the American conscience. Now, therefore, I, Corey Wesley, on behalf of Vicki Skaman, President of the Village of Oak Park and the Board of Trustees, do hereby honor the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and recognize his enduring contributions to civil rights, civic participation, and the ongoing pursuit of justice in our nation. And be it further proclaimed that we encourage residents to reflect upon his call to build broader coalitions, expand opportunity, and strengthen democracy by ensuring that every voice is heard and every person is treated with dignity and respect. Dated this 3rd day of March, 2026.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We also have a motion to approve a proclamation honoring Women's History Month in the Village of Oak Park. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
We're giving it to Trustee Leving Jacobson and seconded by Corey Wesley. I'll start by saying it's my honor to serve with two brilliant women at the board table, Jenna Leving Jacobson and Christina Waters. Whereas the theme for 2026 National Women's History Month, Leading the Change, Women Shaping a Sustainable Future, honors women who have reimagined and strengthened systems that sustain our communities to ensure long-term environmental stewardship, economic stability, educational opportunities, civic participation, and intergenerational equity. And whereas International Women's Day on March 8th is a global observance recognizing the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women and the essential role of women's leadership in advancing justice, resilience, and inclusive growth worldwide. And whereas women have long shaped Oak Park's civic, educational, and cultural institutions through leadership and service in government, education, healthcare, business, science, public safety, the arts, military service, community advocacy, and civic engagement, strengthening the foundations upon which future generations depend. And whereas women serving as presidents of Oak Park's foundational civic institution, including President Vicki Skaman of the Village of Oak Park, President Virginia D. Bloom of the Public Library Board, President Cassie Parecka of the Park District Board of Oak Park, President Cherie Moore and Civic President Jung Kim of the Elementary School District 97 Board of Education, President Audrey Williams Lee of the High School District D200 Board of Education, and Vice Chairwoman Diane Veverito of Triton College District 504 Board of Education embody the 2026 theme of shaping sustainable systems of governance, education, recreation, and civic life that advance environmental responsibility, fiscal stewardship, educational excellence, and long-term community resilience. And whereas these accomplished women, including Trustee Jenna Leving Jacobson of the Village Board, Trustees Suzanne Fairfax, Christina Rogers, Megan Buttman, Annie Wilkinson, and Micah Yamamoto of the Public Library Board, Board Member and Secretary Sandy Lentz of the Park District Board, Board Members Nancy Ross Dribbin, Venice Hurd Johnson, and Becky Perez of the Elementary School District 97 Board of Education, Board Member Dr. Kathleen Odell of the High School District D200 Board of Education, Trustees DeToya Burton Cox and Dr. Margaret Tribus of the Township Board, and Trustee Elizabeth Potter of the Triton College District 504 Board of Education exercise fiduciary responsibility, collective leadership, and independent judgment in service to the public, modeling the same system and level thinking and equity-centered governance that drives sustainable communities worldwide. And whereas throughout history, women have confronted exclusion and systemic barriers, and through resilience and leadership have expanded opportunities, strengthened democratic institutions, and advanced equality for future generations. And whereas the contributions of women from diverse backgrounds, cultures, and experiences continue to enrich our community and strengthen our collective commitment to innovation, collaboration, and inclusive growth. And whereas the Village of Oak Park recognizes that cultural and heritage observances, including National Women's History Month, are not symbolic gestures but essential expressions of community identity that strengthen belonging, deepen understanding, and affirm the dignity of all residents. And whereas the Village of Oak Park remains committed to fostering equity, promoting opportunity, and ensuring environments in which women of every background and lived experience are empowered to contribute fully to the social, economic, and civic life of our community. And whereas the Village of Oak Park will commemorate 2026 National Women's History Month under the theme Women Who Shape Our World on March 21st, 2026 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Art Studio 928, bringing community members together to recognize the influence, leadership, and lasting contributions of women, featuring Dr. Sikael Nzinga as a keynote speaker, whose scholarship and leadership advance dialogue on equity, education, and transformative change, followed by a community discussion to further engage residents in reflection and shared learning. And now, therefore, be it resolved by myself, Vicki Skaman, President of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Oak Park, that March of 2026 is hereby proclaimed National Women's History Month in Oak Park, and all residents are encouraged to reflect on the leadership, achievements, and contributions of women in our community and our country, to participate in local observances, and to continue advancing equity and opportunity for all. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have anything from DEI?
Yeah, sure. We'd like to share some information about upcoming events.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kelly Keys. I'm the Chief of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office for the Village of Oak Park. I would just like to reiterate the President Skaman's invitation to come out and join us on March 21st as we celebrate women who shape our world. We have Dr. Sekile Nzinga, who's a former Oak Parker. She's awesome. She's moving, and she is going to help us talk about power and equitable ways to distribute power and shape our communities. We'll be meeting at a woman-owned art studio, Art 928, which is at 450 South Boulevard. I'd also like to take the time to thank the board and the village manager and staff for assisting and supporting our Black History Month event this past weekend. And I'd like to thank the 290 people who reserved tickets. We were fortunate enough to have such talented Oak Parkers, such as our college student, Cameron Truelove, who is from CAST, from Julian, and a whole bunch of other things, who goes to DePaul. She led us in the Black National Anthem. And Maggie Anderson, an Oak Park mom, who's an author, an entrepreneur, and an advocate for economic empowerment, as well as a survivor, who moved several of us to tears. We also enjoyed a performance from the internationally recognized Deeply Rooted, who has a vice chair and treasurer who both are longtime Oak Parkers, as well as a performance by the Howard Sandiford Orchestra, who's performed in Oak Park several times. All of that had the background of the festive music provided by the Groove King, also known as Kelly R. Fox. We invite everyone in the community to check the VOP website. The communications works really hard to make sure it has updated information to stay abreast of our 19 cultural and heritage events throughout 2026, or you come to attend one of the four commissions that the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office serves as liaison to: the Citizens Police Accountability Commission, the Disability Access Commission, the Aging and Communities Commission, and the Community Relations Commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And yes, Saturday was an absolutely beautiful Black History performance. Thank you for all the work you put into that, as well as volunteers and other staff. So we do. We'll move forward to the village manager's reports, please, unless anyone has anything more to add. No, okay. Village Manager Jackson.
Okay, thank you, President Skaman, trustee members. So we just a couple of items, and then I think very quickly before we get into the pedestrian field stops, we have some updated calendars for March and April. So if there are any questions about the calendar, really there's only been, I think, one subtle change to the calendar since we previously published them, and I think that is the rescheduling of the police annual report. So if there are any questions about the calendars, we'd be happy to answer those questions now. And if not, we'll move on to the pedestrian field stop report.
Okay, just real quickly, I just want to make sure everybody, the calendar for March and April looks all right. We only have one meeting in April, and that's the 21st. Okay? All right, thank you.
There's one on Wednesday too, right? That's unusual, right?
Yes.
Yes, and that's because that's election night.
Yes.
Okay. And, all right, so please continue. Sorry for the
Okay, thank
interruption.
you. So we prepared the pedestrian field stop report. I think we compiled all the pedestrian field stops for 2025. We previously committed to doing this on a quarterly basis, and it's been a little while since we provided the report, but we provided the report in advance of the meeting, and Chief Johnson's here to answer any questions about the report. Chief Johnson, any?
Thank you, Manager Jackson. Shatanya Johnson, Chief of Police. The Police Department provided field contact cards for the year of 2025. Earlier in 2025, we provided the first quarter, but as we prepared to honor Detective Reddings throughout the year, created a delay. So we compiled the information from the first quarter that we provided into a year report. I'll summarize that information now. We had 569 field contact cards completed. Of those 569, 473 were calls for service, leaving 96 as self-initiated stops by the police, resulting in 101 arrests for the year related to field contact cards. Happy to answer any questions. I provided a lot of detail in this report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. So there, thank you for providing the information. Does anybody have any specific questions or comments that they'd like to start us off with this evening? Corey.
Hey, Chief. Always a pleasure. I appreciate all this data, and I appreciate the explanation for why it's been delayed. Definitely understand that. Yeah, I do. I just want to say that I think, it does a great service to you, to the force, to the manager's office that you stand up here in front of us and provide this data and take our questions on it. I really appreciate the transparency. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Jenna?
Okay. Yeah, also appreciate the explanation, completely understandable. I'm grateful that we have this opportunity. I know that this was a practice put in place not that long ago to honor our collective commitment to transparency. The thing that stands out is the racial disparities of the stops, but I don't really know what to do with that information. I know the majority of these were calls for service, not initiated by officers, Oak Park police officers, but I'm struggling with the different formats of the information. So it's less the content and it's how to interpret the data. Because one file are graphs and then the other file is, okay, now they're disappearing in my screen, but the charts and the spreadsheet and then the narrative. So I'm hoping that in future iterations we can get this information in a way that I can connect, we can all, not just me, but we can all, and the public and board members can connect so that we can use this data for decision making. That's the whole point, right? Is so that we can understand better, so that I connected, or I took out a line from our goals, which we're going to be discussing at the end of the meeting, under crime prevention, to develop and implement a strategy for data-informed policing to prevent and reduce crime and allocate resources effectively. And so in order to connect these reports to that goal, it would be more helpful, I think, if we could figure out another way to present the data. There are a couple of specific things that I pulled out, like terms I don't know the meaning of, some acronyms that I don't know what each letter stands for. So there's a vocabulary that's me as a civilian am missing. There was a mention of a local ordinance violated. I would like to know which ordinance that was. Things like that either are missing or they're in different places, and I don't know how to connect between the three documents that were provided. So that's my general feedback and request, is that the presentation of the data is confusing to me. Some of the meanings I need some definitions for. Maybe they're commonly used terms in law enforcement that I don't have a reference to. So yeah, it's more of a form rather than content feedback for me, but appreciate all the work that went into it as always. And if there's more support that the department needs in order to answer this request for clarification, I'd be interested to know what would help meet that need. Is it, I know we're going to onboard somebody from staff to work more closely with CPOC. Maybe they have the capacity to help present the data in a more digestible, clarifying way. But yeah, thank you.
Sure. The data is taken from field contact cards and then put into a spreadsheet. This is really internal information that's driven to help our police force to identify areas where we need to concentrate. So staff take time to take the narrative, put it in a spreadsheet, and then try to make it into terminology that is consistent with someone who's not law enforcement to understand. But this is really internal information that we're providing.
Okay.
Chief, there's one question I have on here. Actually, as I was thinking earlier, I meant to ask, is it a way to get a breakdown of the arrests that result from self-initiated stops versus those that result from calls for service?
We can look into providing that information.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Derek, please.
All right. Well, thanks again. I appreciate this report. I'm actually thinking on my very first board meeting, this was on the agenda, and so it's coming back around. Again, I appreciate the transparency. I think this is good data to have out there. As a data person, though, I do have some struggles with it. I did go back and look at the report that was done on June 17th of last year, and it's pretty different, actually. It's the same information, but it's presented in a completely different way, different format. And I share a lot of Trustee Levy-Jacobson's challenges as a non-officer. I don't really understand all what these acronyms are. They don't really speak for themselves. And I think I'll go a step further. If we don't understand it and we're spending time really trying to digest this, I don't see how the public can have a chance at understanding this. So I think, again, it's a good start, but I think we need to go further, and I think we can go further. It shouldn't be hard to do, right? If we had set up the new system, I know the RMS system is underway, and I have hope that that system will make that work easier. But at this point, it should be kind of like a clockwork, right? We know this is coming up every quarter. It should be reported out consistently every time, on time, and it should just be part of the course of doing work. I understand that this sounds like there's some extra effort to put things into a spreadsheet, but once you have that format down, you can do lots of things with the spreadsheet and present things consistently, and it might make it easier if we had a template or something like that to follow for this. So I do think, and this is oftentimes what happens when you release data and it's sort of new. It leads to, oh, look, we could do this better. We can improve this. It also almost always leads to more questions, right? Which can be frustrating for the folks who are putting in all this effort to then just sort of receive this kind of feedback that's not exactly praising it. But it is also very common. Like, this is something I do all the time. I've seen governments do it all the time. It is a very common pattern that exists. in continually improving the transparency. And I think that is the ultimate goal that I want us to arrive at here, which is data that is actually going to be not just helpful for internal staff and procedures and policies, but for us to make informed decisions and actions, and also for the public to have trust in insight into what is going on in the largest department in our village. So I want us to get there, and I think we can. But I'm just concerned that it doesn't seem like there's enough capacity to do that. I'm actually quite concerned that this data keeps changing. I'm concerned that the questions I had asked, pretty early on when I had started in this position, took over 6 months to answer when I didn't think they were particularly difficult to answer. And then my follow-up questions, I noted that they were responded to, I think, on Friday, probably in advance of this meeting. But that still took 2 to 3 months to do. So it just seems like there's a real lack of capacity to be able to do this kind of work. And I don't see how us continuing to do it the same way is going to change things. Maybe we hold out for the RMS solving all of our problems, but as somebody who has built lots of technology, that you can put a lot of hope into that, and it oftentimes doesn't pan out if you don't have an internal practice that is able to really take full advantage of it. So I'm in support of I think Jenna had mentioned that maybe we need to bring in some more help to do this. I do think the conversation we had with Pivot and the recommendations they had made, and potentially bringing in CPOC is a way to, and with Pivot's help, would be a way to help us take what we have here as a foundation and build on it, make it accessible, make it actionable, make it something that we can present to our residents, and they would know what they're looking at. Because I think we're just not quite there yet. So that's where my mind is going with this, is that I think we need to do that, and I think it aligns with what we all agreed to do with the Pivot recommendations anyway, so it seems like a good opportunity to build that capacity with the resources we have. So that's my overall assessment of this, and what I think I would like to see happen next for us to get to the place where I think we all want to go, which is better transparency and understanding of what is going on in our village.
Sure, so I would like to I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chief Johnson. I have some remarks I would like to make too, and I want to respect the trustees. So if there are any President Skaman.
Well, I would certainly close, but I do definitely want to hear what you and the chief have to say first. And Jim Taglia, do you want to speak first?
I did want to say a couple things.
Then go ahead. Yeah.
So I appreciate the desire for transparency. I know we're working on, in terms of data, our dashboard, which is a big thing, and that's what I previewed a couple weeks ago, is really going to be good for just data generally about crime and other issues. I don't get a lot out of this report, no disrespect. It's not, there's just not, it's an internal report, that internal data generated by the police department for their own use. And as a trustee, I've never seen anything that jumped out at me that caused concern. So I really personally appreciate you going through the trouble of compiling 300 pages of data and other documents, but I personally think I have confidence in the police department's efforts, and I know they do the right thing. So I appreciate this. Being internal, I don't know how much you can squeeze out of it. So that's my thought.
Corey, please.
Sorry, I won't belabor this. I was the person that asked for this report way back when we first started it, right? So I just wanted to add some context, right? So for me, the idea of this is to see this data in front of us regularly allows us to catch trends before they become trends, right? And then also it just allows us to have, as the board, or me specifically, since I'm the one that asked for it, a pulse on how demographically how things are looking based on the work that the police are doing in the community. And the reason for that, right, there's a couple different things. Because we do get, kind of flashing back to the question I just asked about, self-initiated versus community calls for service. We do get these things from two different areas, right? And for me, it's very helpful to know how many of the calls that we get result from our community calling you all and you all rolling and showing up versus self-initiated, and then the percentage of which those things lead to arrest one group versus another, right? Because what I've found in the past is that the self-initiated stops have been a lot more accurate, I guess might be the word. It's not the word that I'm thinking of, but it's the closest that I can think of at the moment, right? I say the self-initiated stops, what I've seen over the course of the time that we've been looking at this data, have been the most accurate, right? Like when the police see like a, what we still call a suspicious person. I know you're working on it, but typically it is for a reason, right? And when that stop occurs, typically you find something that, should not have been happening. Often, if we look at the group that comes from community calls for service, that same level of precision isn't there, right? And so what I think this, for me, does is it does two different things. It tells me, one, where the police are doing a great job. It tells me where the community isn't doing a great job, right? And it tells me, it identifies where we as the board need to put in work to kind of make those two things match, right? And so I find tremendous value in this data. I think I'd like it better when it's quarterly. I definitely understand why it's not this time. Definitely not saying that, not picking on that at all. But yeah, I find a tremendous value in this data, and I'd like us to continue to see it.
Village Manager Jackson.
Yeah, just I think building on Trustee Wesley's points, I was going to add a little more context to this, and also Chief Johnson. And Trustee Tagley, so this is internal information. Trustee Wesley is the one who requested that we provide this information. We didn't actually ask for a motion, despite, we're investing. We had the VIII study that listed among other urgent concerns that we needed to upgrade our technology so that we can actually collect data better and actually generate data better. And we're, midway through that process, and thankfully, we're going to have a new system where we're able to automatically generate data and cleaner data as well. And so, I just want to acknowledge that with the pedestrian stop data, police agencies across America actually collect this data. They do it. It's a standard practice, not typically shared with the public, really, but the request was a request of the trustee, and we felt like we wanted to be responsive to that, and so we put it in motion. And we don't have an issue with it either. So I just wanted to put it into context in terms of the origination of it and our commitment to trying to be to transparency and volunteering to offer that information, which is really typically an internal tool for the police department. So I wanted to add that as just a context, and also make sure that we account for the history of where we are as a village. And part of our job is really trying to support the goals of the trustees. And I think the VIII study pointed out a lot of things challenges for us structurally and systematically that were misaligned with some of our interests and so forth. And we've been constantly working towards upgrading our systems to actually get closer to having systems that actually are responsive to our interests and our goals. And we're almost there. And so the other piece is Chief Johnson, it might be worth it to talk about pedestrians, how this report is generated. There's a lot of manual work that's being done in the police department. And I think most recently we've had one of our new staff members kind of pulling this information together. So it is pretty time consuming, but we hope that the new RMS system is going to improve that turnaround time and actually the quality of data as well.
Sure. So the police department reports out, I'll give that a second. Sounds like a fire truck, by the way. The police department reports out to the state of Illinois on pedestrian stops. That's one of the things that Barry Dunn outlined and as an emerging issue with some of the data that we had. We consistently report out pedestrian stops, which provides an outline of why the police stopped a person, the race of the person that was stopped, the time that they were stopped, the location, as well as the officer's actions. if there's an enforcement action or an investigative action, such as a search, a citation, a warning, or an arrest, then that's required to be provided to the state. Whereas our officers have been tasked with completing a field contact card. That field contact card provides the officer an opportunity to share information with other officers as it relates to an individual that they stopped. There are occasions where a stop does not reach the level of a pedestrian stop. So 2 years ago, maybe even 3, Trustee Wesley wanted information on our stops. And that information has evolved. If you go back and look, back in 2022, we did not provide the narrative. But to reduce the questions, we provided the narrative. This is a free-form narrative that the officers have the liberty of typing out what they've seen and how they responded to either a self-initiated call or a call for service. They use freehand. My staff have to take that card, turn it into terminology that is consistent with something that a civilian would understand. I now have a new strategic intelligence manager that started late fall. He was tasked with responding to your questions from July. And granted, it did take some time to get there, but he's also getting acclimated with the systems and the processes. So he took this information, and it's similar to what I provided in the past, but he's also trying to automate it because his experience is not to really work on data entry type of things, but more of providing intelligence so that I can direct officers and our limited resources at the time to specific areas, to specific things. So he, learning our system, generated this report. Now it's 500-something stops in which he would then have to manually go in and take out things like RO, which stands for reporting officer, and something like release without incident, and the acronyms for that. That's taxing, and that's why it's a bit later than expected. But again, he's trying to automate it so that we can get this information out in a digestible format. And I haven't had an opportunity to look at each narrative. Previously, before him, I would go through and read every contact card, have our crime analyst to put it in a spreadsheet, and then I will go through and change the acronym so that you all can better understand it. But if you go back, you will see the information has evolved over the years, and we are open to recommendations so that we can further explain it. Now, last year, we had a PowerPoint attached to it, and that PowerPoint showed the graphs. He understood the importance of the graphs, so he attempted to put it where you can click on it and see it, but then the general public wouldn't be able. So we separated it out into a different report with the graphs. But previously, if you go back and look, you'll see the graphs at the bottom of each page. Again, he's trying to be more efficient, and I don't fault him at all. I appreciate the ability of trying to evolve as time evolves while we wait on this new RMS system. So going back to pedestrian stop cards versus field contact cards. Those are cards typically, once you make contact with a person, we provide that information to the detectives. It may create leads for them so that they can resolve other crimes. I know I said a whole bunch, but I'm hoping that that clarified some things as it relates to how we started, where we are now, and the adjustments that we're making as we include staff. Now, as it relates to a civilian looking at personal information, because all of that information is redacted and put into a spreadsheet, that would be something that we would have to talk with legal about, because it has individuals' personal information, including birthday, where they live, and things of that nature. And again, this is a lot of work. And I commend my new strategic intelligence manager to try and put it in the same format that I did by hand every quarter. I hope that provides some clarification.
Okay, Jenna?
Obviously, without knowing what the product will look like once the new RMS system is in place, would it be helpful to send along a list of all of the things that I couldn't understand? So you know, like, for a regular civilian, what is illegible for me in terms of the nomenclature and acronyms?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate all this context, right, and comments from Village Manager Jackson, Chief Johnson. I think what I've heard is that this is hard, but we've been improving it over time, and that's just what I want. I just want us to continue, right? And I don't really like the vibe I'm getting of, we should be so lucky to get this, let's just accept it. I think we can do better, and I know we can. I know we're making steps. So I don't want to come at this from a perspective of like, I reject this, I don't like this. I'm just saying I think we can do better. And I mean, I hate to say it, but something like find and replace exists. Like, I know there's work that goes into it, but some of the things shouldn't be difficult to replace RO with reporting officer. You know, like things like that. Those are doable tasks that I think aren't that hard to do. Granted, I'm a data person, but someone with a spreadsheet can do that kind of work. So I guess I just want to reiterate that where I'm coming from is we have a base. Let us do better. Let's do more. We can present this in a consistent way every time. Maybe that's a note we're taking, and we can do that from now on. But I guess I'm not trying to be combative. I'm trying to be constructive here. How can we do better, knowing that if we don't understand it, the public won't understand it? Also, I'm not asking for personal information. That's not what I'm asking for at all. I think that's, of course, should be redacted. Yeah, so.
Okay. All right. Right, all right, so I can close this out then. And I would say that I do think that we're moving in the right direction, but we have shared goals here, you know. We've got the Barry Dunn report, we've got the contract with Pivot. Chief, you've been very much willing to work to be as transparent as possible. That's appreciated. I might suggest that, you know, rather that we just have some conversations with each of the trustees here as we continue to evolve, and so that the expectations are heard and understood, and maybe in one-on-ones instead of at the board table, so that then when it comes back to us, the community is able to digest the information that, and they're hearing from us how we're digesting the information and not the presentation of the information. So I think that we all have that same goal. And I do know we've re-engaged Pivot, like I said, and you continue to work through the Barry Dunn report, so thank you. Anything further?
No, I don't think so. I think it's helpful to get the specific, what Trustee Levin-Jacobson offered up with providing specific questions or suggestions via email, I think would be very helpful.
Okay, great. Yeah. I'm still going to encourage that people reach out and have their one-on-one conversations, though, too, because we're all on the same team with this, so thank you.
Absolutely, and if it came off combative, that was not the intent. Just trying to provide some information, so thank you.
Yeah, not at all, not at all. Jim, you wanted to
I just
say?
want to say one thing. Is that thank you very much. I appreciate the effort and I appreciate the transparency. I tend to try to read the full agendas. I do. I mean, I don't always succeed, but 354-page document where you compiled this, it's like an encyclopedia. And I appreciate what you did. You did what was requested, but I don't have the time to go through that and read each one of these. And I know that maybe some did, but I couldn't because it's just, yet I know to comply, this is what was done, and I appreciate that effort. So thank you, but it's a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
Chief.
evening.
Trustee Enya.
Yeah, just real quick, wanted to, echo a lot of what a lot of what my colleagues said, but some things we could maybe look at more directly, which would, I think, bring us a little bit closer to better understanding of the data would be outcomes and effectiveness, number of searches, firearms seized, drugs seized, arrest rate, and some categories to go along with that, just so that when we are looking at this, we can dissect it a little bit better and a little quicker. I know that it takes a long time to go through some of the data that's in there, and it's kind of like if you work at a retail store and you have a lot of terminology to most of the people coming into that store. They have no idea what that terminology means or how to apply it to their shopping experience. So just trying to figure out better ways to look at this for everybody, but also I think Jenna has brought this up as well, is can we utilize CPOC to help dissect some of this information and to help us find some easier ways for, us laymen to look at this?
Well, I think that I might not be the best person to respond to this, but the contract with Pivot, right, being ways that, okay, so I think where our shared goal is the transparency to the community. So that should immediately bring us to the conclusion that we need the data to be digestible, not just for us, but for the community at large, right? And CPOC shares that goal. You share that goal, Chief. We all do. So we're just here in partnership to get there, and with all parties, I think. But if there's more about the process of that we're already on, that road that we're already on, that you want to share, Village Manager Jackson, otherwise I won't put you on the spot.
I think more to come. We had the pivot report. It has the recommendations in there. There's the staff work that needs to occur as a follow-up as part of, it's in the board goals to actually operationalize those recommendations, and we will be coming back with that. So, I think point 4, which was part of, I think, one of your questions about will CPOC be in a position to eventually provide data and analysis of data, or will they get that data? And so I think that, and I think it's a good thing. So the report was accepted by the village board. We do have follow-up action at the staff level to operationalize those recommendations. So that's going to be forthcoming over the next several months. And we look forward to that too, because there's a capacity question that we're talking about. We have a police agency that has capacity challenges. And so we might as we look to operationalize those recommendations in there, there's interest in CPOC doing some of this stuff. We are hiring a manager in DEI to support CPOC. Perhaps that will relieve some of the burden from the police department, so the police department can effectively be responsive to the board's interests, but also making sure that we're ultimately responsive to the board's interests, community interests around just policing and doing their jobs in terms of that. So, yes.
Yeah, I do think that CPOC can be helpful. They are residents of the Village of Oak Park. They'll be going through very specific training. So then as far as understanding how this could, any report can be presented in a way that is digestible and again, much of this discussion tonight has, I think, unfortunately been about how we received a lot of data. Thank you. And so the transparency is definitely appreciated, but I would prefer to be having the conversation about under, the substance of the data. And so I know we'll get there. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Good night. So I think we need to be partners in communicating how that we can, our expectations there, so that it's, as we do understand, you've got a department whose main role is service to the community. It's not normally institutionalized to be providing for a board in the way that we've been asking, but yet they're partnered with us in doing that. So that's why I'm suggesting these one-on-one conversations or 2x2s, as you've done before, Village Manager Jackson. So that we're working in partnership and setting ourselves up for success because we've communicated very clearly what would be helpful. So, as Jenna has suggested, as others have too. So, all right. Well, thank you very much.
Just one comment. So as far as like the next step, I'm hearing we would want to have some kind of template or some sort of clear set of expectations about what we all want to have far as in these reports. Is that the direction that needs to be given at this stage?
Well, I think what we need to do is give staff a little more time to, onboard the staff that they're looking to have that would help us. And again, I might not be the best person to respond to this question, so please jump in anytime, Village Manager Jackson. But when staff is working towards that next time that they visit the village board with this information, then if we could have some 2x2s before that happens, so that then, the information that you've got in front of you is meeting your needs as board members.
I'll say that CPOC probably has already done all the work to know exactly what should be in these reports, so I kind of just want to tap that resource. So that's what I'm going to do.
I'm sorry.
And I would assume they would be part of that too.
We're talking about pedestrian stops that's okay.
Okay.
I don't want to hear this data from CPOC. I want to hear from the police because the police are the ones who are actually stopping folks. Right, CPOC is great. They have a definite role in our process. But if this data comes forward to the board and I have a question about it, CPOC can't tell me why the police pulled over the person in the alley. They can't tell me, that the suspicious call was because somebody was checking door handles, which happened maybe 18 months, 2 years ago, as Chief Johnson was able to do and explain to me how that everything kind of. The whole kind of narrative of that particular stop, right? I mean, so interesting stop. The last time we talked about this, I think was it someone in a pirate costume in a backyard, right? Like, and it's, and that was a whole narrative that we actually talked. I mean, it's on video, right? And the context there, right, comes from the police. This data for me isn't about the presentation, even though I think honestly, what I wanted to say is I found that the field cards graphs presentation to be amazing, right? This is far better than what we've seen in the past. And what we've seen in the past was good enough, honestly. But this is way better. It has a breakdown by various different age ranges, by each ethnicity, and then also a further pie chart that allows us to see the difference between male and female. I mean, this. For me, I could put this in front of my kids, and they would instantly grasp what this chart and what this data is telling us on the field cards graph. But my point here is that it's less to me about the presentation of the data and more to me about what the data represents and what we're actually trying to get out of it, right? And I understand, right, that you got to have good data and good presentation in order to get something out of it. But I think for me, it's really easy to look at this and say, oh, in May we had 2 Hispanic juveniles stopped, right? And blah, blah, blah. And then you can go and look up the data that's attached here in the report and figure out what those actual stops were, right? Because we have a 500-page report of narratives about each stop. Like it's the level of transparency there is unprecedented, right? Is it perfect? No. Is it good enough? Maybe not, depending on the person. But it's definitely better than anything else I've seen in probably most other communities, right? So I just want to say I get that we've got capacity concerns. I get that, but I just want to say that I like the fact that despite the capacity concerns, this data continues to come before the board, and we continue to have open and honest and transparent and public conversations about it. And I think for me, that's why I asked for it. And as long as we're living up to the spirit of that, I'm okay with it.
Okay. I appreciate that. I do think that the field cards graphs are definitely easier to digest, but everybody deserves to get their answers or their questions and their purpose for wanting to have these updates heard. So that's, at this point, I feel like we've said everything that needs to be said. I will reiterate for the last time, but appreciate that, yes, the transparency is great, that partnership with our chief and with our department, I am extremely grateful for. And not everybody's got that. Not everybody's got that. We do also have, some very innovative next steps in our partnership with Pivot. And we have some amazing members of the Citizen Police Oversight Commission. And I would think that we would want everyone's at least perspective in how we communicate to the public, because ultimately this isn't just for us and just because Trustee Wesley has asked for the data. This is also to continue to improve and develop a stronger relationship with our community at large. And ultimately, if there's any member of our board that still has then questions about how they're receiving it and how they should digest the information, and I have no desire to read every card, but thank you, Chief. Then we're moving in the right direction. And we've got all the right people at the table to get us there. So thank you. This doesn't have to go on this long, but it's also great that we walk away today with clear expectations for the future. And thank you. Okay. And I'm very proud of our police department and all of you. Okay, and I'm not just bullshitting there. Village Manager Jackson, anything further from the Village Manager's report?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And so anything for Village Board committees? No, I appreciate it. And then, so vacancy reports. Yes, I was out last week, so we don't have anything there for appointments, but thank you again to the clerk's office for always providing that vacancy report. Anyone interested in serving on a board or commission, please reach out to Clerk Waters at clerk@oak-park.us. We have a first reading on the agenda this evening with a possible adoption. So we could decide to waive our second reading. So before calling for that motion, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the topic for conversation. On an ordinance to amend the 2026 building and construction permit fees of the Village of Oak Park. Village Manager Jackson.
Yes, President Skaman, trustee members, Craig Failer, Development Services Director, will provide a brief explanation of this item. If the board is interested in doing it, staff is proposing adoption of the proposed amendments tonight.
Thank you, Manager Jackson. Good evening, Craig Failer, Development Services Director. This is an amendment to the permit fee schedule that you adopted at the end of last year. At the end of last year, we also adopted an elevator agreement with Thompson Elevator to do our elevator inspections. They had been with us for about 4 years. We have another 3-year agreement with them. During that negotiation, their fees went up. So we want to amend our fee schedule to ensure that we are not losing money on the inspections. So we're collecting the same amount of fee that we are being billed for by Thompson Elevator. So that's the first piece of this. We're also wanting to impose a $50 administration fee for the work that the village has to do to maintain the elevator inspection schedules and schedule them and work with Thompson Elevator on that. They do inspections twice a year in March and in September. So there's a lot of elevators that get inspected and re-inspected. The second part of this amendment is to look at non-compliance issues within the community. So we have encountered several contractors, homeowners who have violated our stop work orders or haven't adhered to the policies we have in place. So we have no penalty in place currently. Our whole goal here is to get compliance, not necessarily to collect money. So we have a grace period that we want to impose, basically to let them know that that they are in violation, and if we catch them again in violation, we will impose this fee on them. The one contractor that we probably won't do that with are roofers, because they are in and out in a couple days. So asking them to not do it the next time really means when they do another house. So we want to make sure that we are consistent with all of our contractors as far as that. The other thing you will note in there that's in the permit fee amendment are the credits that you supported at your January 27th meeting for the sustainable construction items. So we want to make sure that those are identified in our schedule as well. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions on this one? All right, sounds like does that mean that we are willing to waive the second reading and go for it? Okay, then I would ask for a motion to receive, or I don't know, what do I want to say? To adopt and waive our second reading of an ordinance to amend the 2026 building and construction permit fees of the Village of Oak Park. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Wesley, seconded by trustee Straw. And Clerk Waters, if you would please take the roll.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
Trustee Straub?
Yes.
Trustee Eater?
Yes.
Trustee Enya?
Yes.
Trustee Loving Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
President Skaman?
Yes, thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay, so then I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as it's been presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Straw and seconded by trustee Wesley. Clerk Waters, would you please take the roll?
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
Trustee Eater?
Yep.
Trustee Enya?
Yes.
Trustee Loving Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
President Skaman?
Yes, okay, the consent agenda has been approved. On here are work plans for a good majority, not all, of our citizen commissions. So thank you for their work, their commitment, and for the staff for their preparation for the agenda item. Regular agenda, item L, a resolution approving and adopting the 2026 special events fee schedule. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion by trustee Wesley, seconded by trustee Eater. This item could have very easily been on consent. In fact, it was I who asked if we could just maybe go through a little bit of what this process looks like when in how this fee schedule lives out. I'll give it to Village Manager Jackson.
Yes, thank you, President Skaman. I want to introduce Paola Garibay, our Neighborhood Partnerships Administrator. She is currently the person responsible for coordinating the special events permit process. We're doing a lot of work in this space. Tonight was simply really just a request for approval of the fees. But Paola is going to provide just a brief explanation of this item and the purpose of it, and maybe offer some insights on what's coming next in terms of an in-depth review of our special events process. And that item actually is on our calendar, I think, for April. Paola.
Thank you, Village Manager Jackson. Good evening, President Skamen and Trustees. Again, Paola Garibay, Neighborhood Partnerships Administrator. And tonight we're seeking approval of the 2026 Special Events Fee Schedule. As Village Manager Jackson mentioned, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the current special events permitting process and what we have forthcoming. So a special event permit is required when an event organizer hosts an event that obstructs the public right-of-way. And this is typically triggered by street closures, if there is any structures in the public right-of-way, like tents, stages, and if there's also sale or consumption of alcohol or an anticipated attendance of 500 or more attendees. When these thresholds are met, the event requires interdepartmental review to ensure safe coordination of the event. The departments that are part of the review process include police, fire, public works, parking services, environmental services, engineering, public health, and development services for any liquor licensing. Before each department can conduct their plan review, we need the event organizer to submit a formal permit application, and this involves a narrative describing the event. They also need to submit a site plan which shows the placement of any street closures, refuse, sanitations, and structures. We also require that they submit a certificate of insurance naming the village as additional insured. If the event is anticipating 500 plus attendees or the consumption or sale of alcohol, they are required to submit this application to us 90 days prior to the event. Otherwise, they will submit it 60 days prior. There is a standard $100 permit application fee, and if the organizer submits the event outside of the mentioned time frame, they are subject to a $150 late application fee as well. So now moving into the cost estimation and payment structure. Once the application is received and all of the supporting materials are reviewed by our staff, they go ahead and produce an estimated cost for the special events. And this could be anything from police staffing to vehicle usage, equipment, fire or EMS presence, and then public works, as I mentioned, barricades, refuse, street closures, health inspections if there's any food vendors as part of the event. So once we have these costs, we do provide the event organizer with an estimate of the anticipated costs, and per our ordinance, they are required to pay 50% of that fee up front before we can issue the special events permit. Once the event concludes, our staff goes back and conducts the final review, and they tell us what the actual cost of the events were. So if that comes out to be higher or lower than the initially estimated cost, we either reimburse for the overage or we bill back for the remaining balance. Now, the fee structure ensures commitment from organizers to pay that 50% up front before we issue the permit. And then following after the event, assuming they're going to make some sort of revenue on ticket sales or any of that, they can pay the balance. So next we'll talk about how the fees are determined. And special event fees are directly tied to actual service delivery costs. So this is not a revenue generating structure for the event. It's simply to recover the cost spent for the services. There's 3 types of fees that we issue with special events. The first being administrative fees. And this is, as I mentioned, the standard application fees, any late fees. And this is for review and coordination with departments. We also have fees for tents, stages, electrical permits. That's part of the staff review that is conducted as well. Liquor licenses if that is part of the event. There's temporary food permits for events that involve food, and those did increase bit.ly over the last year as they were updated to be aligned with the business license fee schedule, and this anticipates a 3% annual increase. Personnel costs is the second category of fees. And so we do know that for police and fire, the hourly rates that are posted on the fee schedule is an average, and this varies depending on the ranking of staff who is going to be working the event. Public works and health staff have flat rates for their inspectors and for their public works crew, so that doesn't really fluctuate much. And then hourly wages, overtime rates, holiday pay, those are all determined by the collective bargaining agreements for our staff. And then the last one would be equipment and vehicle usage. And this is reflective of the actual operating cost of deploying the cost associated with supporting events. And as I mentioned, the purpose of the cost structure is cost recovery. There is no revenue generation from these costs. Special event costs are primarily personnel related. They may include overtime, reassignment of staff. We have talked to our internal department staff, and they mentioned that if any of these Activities are happening on the regular workday. We don't bill we don't bill the event organizers for that. It's only for things that happen outside of the regular workday. Over the past year, the Neighborhood Services Department has engaged in conversations with event organizers regarding the permitting process. We have heard concerns about the complexity of the permitting interface, uncertainty of final costs based on the structure of the 50% upfront, 50% later, and just the impact that this has on their budgeting year over year. In response, we launched the Spark Oak Park Special Events Grant Program in late 2025, and we did invite eligible organizers to apply for up to $6,000 in reimbursement funds to support their 2025 events. I'm happy to say that we received 8 applications for 2025, 6 of which were approved, and we're going to be awarding $15,500. Additionally, staff has met with interdepartmental staff to understand their plan review process and how they determine costs, which is some of the context that I've provided today. We're also researching peer communities to understand their special event permitting practices and cost recovery models, and we've began compiling comparative data and incentives and fee structures, which we will be bringing to you all in a study session later in Q2 to go over our current process, identify challenges, and discuss potential recommendations moving forward. So with that, I hope it provides an overview of our current process, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Corey.
Thank you so much for this. This is awesome. I have a question. It's more of a general question, but it kind of will kind of decide how I think about this. And the question I have is, like, from the village's perspective, what's the purpose of special events? And let me give an example. Are they economic vitality? Are they part of the economic vitality engine, or are they just community? Do they exist just for community participation, or like what are we trying to get out of them at the village level? And the reason I ask is because then that goes to my mindset of how I think about the fees. Does that make sense?
I think at a fundamental level, just for any municipality, particularly urban municipalities who actually have similar processes in place, this is a service that is provided to support special events in the community, right? Okay. Fundamentally, right? I do think not only here, but in other communities, there is an embrace of the idea of the connection between fostering a economic vitality, bringing people to the city, in this case the village, to support our local economy. We do see it that way. We recognize that in our board goals and priorities. We're recognizing it again with this cycle. And so we're trying to strengthen that perspective and that connection. And I think we've heard over the last couple of years feedback on the special events process. We're now in position to analyze it, identify what the concerns are, and then come back and provide some recommendations, or at least some options for the board to consider on how the village might be able to support special events not only as a service, but also as an opportunity to advance our other goals, i.e. economic development or economic vitality.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're invested there too.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Yeah. And excuse me. Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out and trying to understand. Wow, excuse me. Because I look at it the same way, right? I look at this as, a driver of the economic vitality engine, probably at a lower level than what we typically talk about at this table, but an important level, right? Because I think our special events reach a lot of people in the village, and they have the opportunity and the hopefully, right, like they are achieving getting more people engaged in actually participating in Oak Park. Not just, living here, but participating in the community aspects, but also participating in supporting the village through economic means. So when I think about these fees, that's the perspective that I bring to them. So I'll leave it there later. They're kind of. One thing I'd ask is that can we have an analysis when you bring that back, if it's not too labor intensive, on what it would cost us if we decrease these by 25 and 50%?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Brian?
I'm curious, is there any analysis with the, when we're issuing the special event permits regarding how, reserving an ambulance, police, or fire engine impacts service delivery at that time? Obviously, we couldn't have 3 special events going at the same time, which each required an ambulance present, as that would put all of our generally staffed ambulances out at special events. But I guess what I'm thinking there is, so are we factoring that into the costs rather than just sort of the base costs, but also the impact to service delivery?
I would say, Chief Terry, if you want to come down and speak to this, and Chief Johnson, I don't know if you want to speak to it, but I would say that's definitely factored into the analysis in terms of the impact to service delivery. In terms of the cost, I think it is really what the costs actually are. If it's overtime that's going to be charged, then it's just a sheer calculation of what the cost may be. But yes, there is that general analysis of how service delivery is impacted. And before I turn it over to them, I think this is part of the forthcoming analysis too, in terms of we've seen a lot of interest over the last couple of years in increasing special events. And so we do understand that there is an impact to service delivery. And so oftentimes, and so what we discovered is that as part of this conversation, we need to be talking about how do we achieve the interest of supporting additional events while also maintaining our position on service delivery. Right. Yes, but I'll turn it over to the chiefs to actually explain how we specifically look at that.
Yes, sir. Good evening, J.T. Terry, Fire Chief. Little background information, as all special events are put through the process, weekly reports are put out to all the departments who are aware of them. So with us, that has to do with routes, that has to do with additional, knowing that there's additional people in town. So that's definitely put into consideration every week. In terms of the actual special events, during the permit process, individuals are given the opportunity to request an additional ambulance or fire protection, whatever it is. That's where the fee comes in, because those are not the on-duty crews. They would be hired back. We would pull one of our reserve vehicles out, and that's where the fee would come in to actually cover it. So there is some impact maybe in traffic rerouting, but in terms of service offered to the village from the fire side, there is no impact because those crews are separate.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. It's pretty much the same with the police department. We put out for officers to come in and work extra hours. When we don't get enough staffing for that, then we pull from other support departments to support the special events.
Thank you. Okay, that's helpful, because one of the things I was just thinking about is, I know how many ambulances, how many fire apparatus there are, in particular on the fire side, where it's, when one of our trucks is at a special event, like that means that one of our trucks isn't at one of our firehouses, and that could potentially delay response times. But it's good to know that we're covering it with off-duty hours as much as possible. So I guess that's just something I was curious about, because as we are making a push on special events, and if we were to have multiple special events requiring coverage at the same time, do we have a process for saying, I'm sorry, we can't provide ambulance coverage for you because we already have 1 or 2 special events at this time that are requiring that coverage?
Sure. Again, as they're registered, I use block parties, for example. you can have multiple block parties at one time. We do offer the opportunity for a vehicle to come out, and it's limited to 2. So block parties are a little bit different because we know there's more. Should there be multiple events in town that would agree to the special fee, then we would prioritize them. Anything that has alcohol involved would be a higher priority. The fireworks were something we had traditionally, was always a number 1 priority in terms of, staffing with crews that were hired back. So as the process goes on, we do look at the potential for additional injuries as we would prioritize them. But with the special fees, traditionally, not many vendors have picked them up in the past, in all honesty. Again, we're aware of them, but those individuals would be responding out of the stations on a normal 911 basis.
Great.
As it relates to multiple events, we, again, would spread our officers out as necessary, but we're also looking at other avenues, private security firms that can be considered in place of our officers, or in addition to our officers, considering that our staffing levels at the current time.
Great. Thank you.
I'll add to that in conversations with departments, we have heard that, as Chief mentioned, the use of those specialty equipments is not often requested. It's more so if an event has taken place, like there was, of course, a lot of attention around the Highland Park incident a couple of years back. So if something like that were to happen, then that would put police and fire on higher alert to be prepared and have more staffing and more equipment out there to support in the case of some sort of emergency. We're also, in speaking with some of the towns that we're looking at as peer communities, are discussing how they prioritize that. So they do have some limitations we've found initially on the number of events that they provide, and also taking into consideration the number of block parties that we have on any given weekend. So those are parameters that we're looking at as well to bring forward to the board for consideration.
All right, well, thank you. I hope this was helpful for folks to learn a little bit more about. Once upon a time, I chaired that committee for a New York 2nd as clerk. So I did at least learn how each of the departments review the special events, and from what I understand, the whole point of this fee schedule is as an impact recovery. And it is common for municipalities to do that, but like as Trustee Wesley was saying, the conversation that I'm most interested in is where then the partnership overlaps with our board goals around economic vitality, increasing tourism, highlighting and inviting, highlighting our strengths, inviting people to our community to see that, and how we can do that better in partnership with organizations that are bringing people from all over the region already. But realizing that we need to have some balance. So when you do come back to us, I'd like to know, unless you know now, what did we budget for the Spark grants, and how much we typically make off of, not make, because I realize it's a recovery, but what we bring in from the special events. I do think for some of our partner agencies, I'm still hearing that, they have to sometimes make a very difficult decision as to whether to continue their event or not, just because it does get expensive. And I don't want to lose out on those opportunities to partner when they're for our better. If we've had the opportunity to evaluate in an evidence-based way how aligned they are and the benefit of partnering. So,
Can I say one thing?
Oh, please, go ahead.
I would agree with you. I think you said it very well. There's a balance here, and there is some economic vitality components here. And I would just ask that if we are going to consider anything that would reduce these fees, that you also come back with the revenue source to supplement the loss that we're going to have, because we're going to quantify it sounds like, per your request, and then understand where that's going to be plugged, because it'll be a little hole to plug.
Well, I do think, and I know that we're going to still be reviewing it, new opportunities for revenue sources. Or the first one that comes to mind for me is that we have the ability to add a museum tax, which
very good point.
who, I'm not sure exactly how that would contribute to this conversation now, but there's a number of areas that we have to make decisions on additional revenue sources as well.
Right, but it's a whole picture,
As,
right? So-
as well as liquor tax and other areas that we can, yes, hopefully time these in a way that before the next budget season, we're having that holistic conversation, because we know that we can't keep paying for more without looking to balance our budget. But there are also times when we're budgeting to host events ourselves, and that may, be more efficiently done in partnership with events that exist, at times. Or there's events that we have going on in the community. I'll just use the example I've used multiple times, the microbrew review. We've never really capitalized on recruiting breweries to our community from the 100+ microbrews that show up for that event every year. So, okay. Thank you. So now we have a motion on the table for this one, right? Okay, so Clerk Waters, if you would please take the roll.
Trustee Wesley?
Yes.
Trustee Eater?
Yes.
Trustee Enya?
Yes.
Trustee Levin Jacobson?
Yes.
Trustee Straw?
Yes.
Trustee Taglia?
Yes.
And President Skaman.
Thank you. Yes, passed. Thank you very much, and appreciate the presentation. We have I'd like entertain a motion for a resolution approving the village board goals for 2026 to 2028 as reviewed at the July 29, 2025 village board meeting. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Enya and seconded by trustee Levin Jacobson and village manager Jackson.
Yes, President Skaman, trustee members, I'm going to turn this over to Deputy Village Manager Lisa Shelley. We do have department leadership here tonight to be responsive to any questions that you may have as part of the goals. We did a goal review this summer, got input from the village board, and we've just compiled that information and presented it to you. And so tonight we're ready to answer any questions, make any adjustments as necessary. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. I got a handout here that's a supplement to what was in the file. If each of you could just take one of those, and it's not necessarily a substantive change, but it is the priority 3 of the economic vitality goal, and just a little more information related to that priority. So I just want you to have that as a reference. And so then with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa to guide the discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Lisa Shelley, Deputy Village Manager. So as that item comes around, again, I'll just reiterate that the document we're going to go over tonight is unformatted. So once it is approved, it will be formatted and then put on the village website for everyone's reference and the public's reference. And it is for a 2-year time period. It is done traditionally after every local election here with the village board. There are many actions then that come from this document that the public then sees as part of discussions during the annual budget process. So that's how those two are connected. As we begin, I will just walk through each of the pillars, the priorities, and then the strategic initiatives that the departments here suggested. I didn't receive any particular questions before we started, so I'm just going to highlight what has changed from your discussions this past summer and that we've been talking about. So again, I have it here up on the screen. There's a vision statement that the village board reviewed. There were no changes to that. There are village board core values and guiding principles. You see on the red underline, everything remained the same, except during that discussion you added, we recognize our changing demographics and adjust to meet evolving needs and desires. So what you see on the screen that's in red are the changes that we propose. So I won't read all of them, but I just wanted to point out some of these key ones that you did overall. So then your focus here, because this is, the board did spend time reviewing the pillars. So by pillars, I mean these headers for each section called community affordability, community health and safety, racial equity, vibrant, diverse, connected neighborhoods, sustainability and resiliency, economic vitality, and organizational effectiveness. And we'll talk about that one. I should underline that as well. That was the newest pillar that we discussed. So we do want to spend a little bit of time on that, that you added this summer. So as related to affordability, a lot of times the conversation was you had things that we had already accomplished. So if you look at community health and safety, for example, implement Barry Dunn report recommendations. The board maybe had consolidated a few of these together and had fewer priorities, or maybe even added a priority if something was already finished. I noted here from the facilitator at the time, anytime that you moved an item, but generally anything in red here were the changes to the actual language. So for example, under community health and safety, you actually added one that had a focus on strengthening Oak Park's public health network to improve current and future health outcomes. So that's why you see that there and underlined. And then there's a couple others where you just changed the words. So if you'd like, I can just want to focus on these priorities, and then we'll go into each pillar and priority and the strategic initiatives that staff is here for to talk about, of what you're going to see upcoming proposed in the next 2 years. So are there any questions on any of these new ads? So community affordability, you see was changed. Oh, President Skaman.
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering, and if it's what you planned for, then so be it. But because I see most of our director heads, if not all, are present with us this evening. Do we have to go through this? I don't, because otherwise I would just ask my colleagues if there's areas of concern, areas of priorities that I'd prefer to hear from each of them on, rather than going through this page by page.
No, absolutely. It's really up to the board's desire how they want to proceed.
Okay, very good. So presuming everybody, was there when we participated in the goal setting sessions last June. If you, in seeing this document today, have areas of concern, something that you would have liked to have seen worded differently, or let's start with that, as I do think that we have questions on prioritizing the initiatives that have been presented to us, but who'd like to go first? Anyone have any concerns or questions based on what they see?
Oh, I can.
Okay, well, we could just go straight across, too.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
We all have things to say, I'm sure. That's right. So maybe it's good I'm going first. My comment is going to be building off of what I talked about last time in the summer. That's kind of meta. So we had 25 priorities from the previous round of board goals, and we removed some, we added some, but we're still at 25. 25 is the number I counted in this document. And when we went in preparation for that session last in the summer, I tracked, I kind of counted up how many of these were completed, how many were on track, and how many were carry forwards, which I think sort of is not completed or maybe not started, something in that kind of category. So we did about 70% of the things we set out to do, 70% of those 25. Maybe a little time passed, maybe we did a little bit more in the remaining months, between then and now, but say roughly 70. So I guess the first thing is, it seems like we're still trying to get the same amount done in the 2-year period as we did last time. And is the expectation to do 100%, or are we shooting for that 70%? again, I mean, I guess I'll start with that question. Do we have a sense of that? Are we really trying to do every single one of these things?
I'll help. I think we're always trying to do every single one of them. I think that's our commitment. We don't want to see anything reflected in here that we can't, in good faith, try to get done.
Okay.
I think there probably are, some of these things are actually maybe carry forwards from that 30%. That we just said, hey, we still got a little bit more work to do on some of these things. Like, for example, racial equity strategic action plan. Right?
Okay.
That's just one example. But,
okay. All right. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. So
at least I don't know.
That was exactly the answer I was going to give, that when we look at this and when the departments here meet, they do look at putting something down that they think can be achievable in 2 years. That being said, sometimes things come up, various things, and that's why you'll see the carryover.
Got it.
And then there are things that did come off, and then they were replaced with, some other things.
New things. Okay, got it. Okay. That's helpful to know, and I think, I've gone through this goal-setting process before in different contexts with different organizations, albeit much smaller than the Village of Oak Park. So, but I will note that it's very common to bite off way more than you can chew, and then you're like, oh man, this is overwhelming. And I kind of got the sense that it was like we bit off too much last time. So it may, just thinking about, okay, what do we do? Because I don't think anybody wants to just start scratching off goals here. That's not what we're trying to do. Is it possible that we could potentially, and I think this could potentially be very useful for staff, I have my priorities, and I know you guys are always taking notes about everything we say, but would it be a useful exercise for each of us to order all 25 of these and then compare and then see where we land? I think that could be very helpful in finding out where we are in agreement and maybe where we're in disagreement for everybody. So I'm just trying to think about how to achieve a prioritization. Maybe you already had an idea.
No, I'm gonna probably pass this over to President Skaven to help us with this one. But what I just want to add a little more context, right? So, like, even our goals were for the last cycle very aggressive, and we were proud of the fact that we got 70% of it. But there are sometimes in those periods things come up that are unforeseen at the time that you set them. One of which was like probably a 10-month run on managing the migrant crisis, right? So when you look at just that alone, and that was very heavy for us, and it actually interrupted, right? And we had some transition organization. So those are things that sometimes you just can't predict that's going to happen that actually impacts the work program. So the 70% is actually, when we did our reflections and going through it internally, we're like, oh, wow, we still got 70% done despite that, So I just wanted to add that as context. I think historically, I want to transition just to President's Gaming to respond to you. We try to do the retreat sessions to actually get consensus and get input. We try to bring something to you in a way where in those retreat sessions where you can workshop it, get it to a point where there's some consensus, and then there's likely some things that you're going to recommend that we didn't anticipate, and then we try to incorporate that and then bring it back. Oftentimes, on consent, but in this case, we're bringing it back on regular sessions just to make sure. But so I'm going to hand it off to President Skaven, because that would be what you just described would be another step in the process than what we've typically done.
Yeah, well, so we did chat about this very briefly, and as far as like a strategic process of goal setting and having team kind of gelling and having kind of shared expectations that reduce frustration when things take longer than they need to take, all those things, I think that, you're talking about a step in a process that, I've seen before too. Tonight, though, I feel pretty confident to be able to listen to what everyone contributes to the conversation, and then if there may be some way that we can insert something to follow up, whether it be at a committee level, whether it be through 2x2s, whether it be a study session in the future. But that would be for the benefit of our relationship with staff in helping us attain our goals, right? You know, always clarity is going to inevitably benefit in every situation, right? So let's start those so that we can identify the quickest way to kind of coming to that. I can only chuckle because I think I know your priorities.
Oh, I can list them if you want.
I know you can.
I'm ready to go.
I think everybody, yes, Village Manager Jackson.
Just before you guys get started, just one more thing I want to add to the context. Like, many, if not all of these things are anchored in previous board decisions and plans and so forth. And so they're key projects. Our contribution to this is aligning the key projects with the priorities and having fidelity to prior commitments that are articulated in like plans and so forth, right?
Right.
So if we do modify some of the projects, then we would be, changing previously determined sort of commitments in terms of timelines and so forth in some instances. So
okay, I'm glad you said that though, because I don't think that's the intention here, but it's important for us to understand that. Yeah. So by approving this tonight, and this is really giving staff their marching orders for how to divide and conquer, right? And so it is important for you to speak up if there's something in here that you actually don't, see as something that you want staff to be spending staff time on. But everything in here, to answer the earlier question, is going to be planned for. So then what I'm hearing is there, an opportunity to insert a step where we give a little bit more clarity, not in tonight's overall conversation, but very specifically in different areas, so that we can stay concentrated on on a shared end goal. And also some potential team building opportunity in that kind of exercise. But the truth is we also have a limited amount of time at this board table, and maybe a committee is a healthy option. So I do appreciate it being brought up. Everybody please understand that by approving this tonight, everything does start to get, the wheels go in motion, okay? And so no, it's not our intention in those next steps to change that priority. You're making that decision tonight, or take it out or overly modify. But there can be some efficiency dialogue that can be had, as long as we can insert it in a way that doesn't also then kind of drag it out or add too many extra steps. We can do that. We can, 7 highly intelligent people here, we can figure it out. Okay. All right, but thank you for bringing it up. Because yes, 25 sets of goals, and we want to be, what the last one that we added was about being efficient, right? Organizational effectiveness. There we go. Jenna?
Yeah, I'll pass it up.
Okay, thank you so much. I can only imagine what it was like to take all of those conversations and put them onto paper in a readable document. So I appreciate the work that went into this, and obviously all the work that went into previous boards to set so many of these goals that I agree we should maintain as priorities. So first, to respond to Trustee Eater, I think prioritization would be an interesting exercise, not tonight, but I think it would be fairly easy to come up with some kind of form where we just rank, not so much to derail things that are in process that have been committed to and invested in, but there are some things mentioned here that I would like to elevate, right? And so if there's enough consensus there, maybe we can move those things from goals to implementation phases. So I think that could be a useful exercise that I would, support, and I don't necessarily think it has to be that heavy of a lift for any of us. most of the comments that like notes that I took in preparation for the conversation, fairly disparate and mostly kind of like wordsmithy, kind of couple of typos I won't mention right now. But the first that comes up was the added guiding principle. I don't actually remember with all that much clarity where this came from in our conversation, recognizing changing demographics and adjust to meet evolving needs and desires. So if there's missing, memory that I'm missing from where that came from in the fall or the summer, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if over like wordsmithing it now would be all that useful, but this idea of changing demographic could kind of be interpreted in a number of ways, right? Like, I know that those of us here, we don't mean like the whitening of our community, but we've had some demographic loss of Black residents here, and that is a changing demographic, and I don't like this idea of that we're meeting evolving needs because we've lost, families and residents of color.
Again?
It's the addition of
the guiding principles.
Yeah.
This one, it came from the.
So I think I know where we were probably coming from with that, but I think it might be useful to articulate what we mean about evolving to meet the needs of our community. It's not that it says what we mean it to say.
Can you share the context of, because I'm not remembering exactly that addition either.
If you may recall, Mark Blessoff, who is he still the chairperson of our Aging and Communities Commission?
Yes,
he gave a public comment and made a appeal to us giving some consideration in our priorities around, really paying attention to the changing demographic around aging. And so that was really the point.
Right, and we were receptive. I agree with Jenna, though, that this doesn't capture that quite, I think, with that immediate understanding of what Mark was communicating there, too. And
because he's coming from a public health perspective in terms of the way we think about aging from a public health lens, and so I don't know if we want to reposition that within our public health goals or reword the guiding principle to better reflect. Thank you for that, because I didn't remember that connection. I obviously remember Mark's comments, but anyway, I don't know if we want to do this now or just flag it as a thing that we might want to come back to.
I feel like we're gonna take your feedback like we did the protocols, and we'll mark that all down, and then it'll be on. You'll see it again, and it'll be on the consent next time, unless you want to pull it again for more.
Right. Well, at the minute you remind us of the context, then rereading it, it totally makes sense. So crafting it, you did a good job, but there is something missing.
Yeah, because
I guess being specific, but maybe it even is worth a quick check-in with Mark or the aging community.
You were correct in remembering that under community health and safety, you did add an emphasis on public health there, which we read at the beginning. So yes, we can take a look at it, because it's either here as a value or under that section.
And I think as a value, meeting evolving needs and desires is good, right?
Okay.
That can capture the aging demographic. Hopefully that captures more diversity and inclusion and integration and all of the things that exist in our other goals. But if it's more general, maybe it captures.
I like
the
that.
Spirit.
We are focused on meeting evolving needs and desires. That's fine.
Yeah, I think that works, and I think I appreciate the perspective around looking holistically at all demographics. I just want to, I was just pointing out, I think
Yeah.
the reason why this came up was because there was an appeal around aging.
Yeah, makes sense.
But from an equity standpoint or a DI standpoint, we're concerned about all
Right.
demographics.
Right.
Right.
Which is, we don't want to forget aging either, right? Like, it's
Right.
got to be that's inclusion, right?
Right.
In terms of the community health and safety priority of reducing crime, evaluating the continued expansion of the ECHO program. Obviously, I think all of us are very supportive of the continued expansion and support of that program, but including the addition of the second phase that includes a social service co-response. Is this the partnership with Thrive in terms of phase 2?
It is neighborhood services. It's a little D, right?
Mhm.
On the screen.
So we would be evaluating phase 2 with the co-response. That would be coming back in May, but it would include the co-response model.
I would like it to specify that we're talking about mental health crisis, because I feel like that's something we've been committed to and is part of these, what was the category you gave it, like the in progress, the way that you organize it? Carry forward.
I think the intent was that social services included mental health. And because we had originally talked about like a low risk and high risk response that encompassed all code call for services. And when we bring back phase 2, we not separating out just mental health, but including every type of social service that is included for call for service.
But isn't phase 2 the mental health crisis?
That's included.
Oh, it's okay.
But it's not all of it. And we had when we first talked to the village board about this in phase 2, we talked about the tiers, the multiple tiers of call types. Mental health was an important priority, and of course, we're going to come back and talk about that, but we're going to be talking about all the tiers of calls for phase 2.
Okay, if we do a ranking, I would rank this very high, that we get to this commitment. Okay, so a couple, my other notes are wordsmithy, and I don't want to take up too much time, but under vibrant, diverse, connected neighborhoods, priority 3, create opportunities for neighborhood and community engagement. I don't have any reference for Envision Oak Park. I don't have, I know I looked it up, so now I understand where it's from. But if we were to trim or edit or something, I might identify that as something that doesn't resonate with me and.
Little D, correct, under there?
Yes.
What?
Begin Envision Oak Park Comprehensive Plan. Is it that one?
Oh,
right?
sorry.
Just want to make sure
Yeah.
we're talking about the correct one. It's this one.
What was the question?
I don't remember discussing it in the summer. It predates me, so I don't have a sense of approving or disapproving of it as being part of our goals.
Yeah, so we added that because that is on our work plan. Our comprehensive plan we have right now, the Envision Oak Park, was done in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And you should update your comprehensive plan every 10 years. So we're a few years past the update process. So we were looking at trying to start this yet this year. So it's really an update of 12-year-old document that we want to bring to current concerns within the village. Standards.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
And I think can we speak to the connection to where it's positioned under the priority? I think, what was the priority again?
Opportunities for neighborhood and community engagement.
Opportunities for neighborhood and community engagement. So maybe we should speak to that too specifically, just to clarify. The reason it's positioned there is because of the community engagement that we expect to incorporate in that update process?
Yeah, so this whole section really talks about talking to the neighbors, talking to the neighborhood, getting feedback from the community. And the process of the comprehensive plan, the last time we did it was very extensive. It was a 2-year process where we talked to just about everybody that lives in this community and therefore. But this is really an opportunity to reach back out to the community, the residential community as well as the business community, and kind of seek their feedback on what and how we should proceed in the future.
Okay. Thank you, that's helpful, clarifying. The only thing I will just note on page 18, it's the People Over Parking Act. I can't help myself, I have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is something that is going to be starting June of this year. It is, the act has been passed, so in not only for our community, but any community that has similar public transportation opportunities. So we want to do an evaluation of how that impacts our community. As you know, if we have developments within those areas, technically they would not have to provide for parking for that development. Now I know from a market standpoint, they'll probably want to have parking. So I don't see them not providing parking for some developments. But there is an opportunity that, or not, maybe a thought that they don't want to, and they want to try something. And the fact that we have on-street overnight parking restrictions, it does not allow for any on-street parking opportunities. So for example, the city of Minneapolis, when they created their new zoning maps, they eliminated parking for development. So it was more cost-effective for them to do developments without parking, but yet they would be able to park on the street without any kind of restrictions. So that enabled them to develop without parking. In Oak Park, it's going to be a little bit tough if we want to do that because we don't offer on-street parking, except maybe in certain areas where you have a parking permit, so it's not outright. So we want to understand what the impacts of the People Over Parking Act is going to do to the village. Plus, with the Shape Oak Park project, we're also looking at parking with that too. So this has kind of put a little tailspin on that process, but we just want to get an overall picture of what the parking impacts are going to be in the future.
Okay. And you're good? Thank you very much. Jim?
A couple of things. So just, I think it reflects what I've read, reviewed here, reflects fairly what was discussed last, I think July was, the goals that we talked about. I do have a question about the overnight parking though, just question. So what would happen though in the event that would we eliminate permit parking then? Is that what would be suggested? I mean, I just want to understand that.
Yeah, there's a new state law that
no permit parking, just free parking on the street.
Eliminates parking minimum requirements, and Craig provided a memo early this year about it, and so we want to continue to do an analysis on it in the context of, well, the law itself and our parking ban, but then also we have the Missing Middle project that requires us to look at parking too.
Yeah, the focus is really on private parking, but there's going to be impact on private parking because of the public parking side of it, the restriction on the street. And you're right, that should be people over parking, not parking over people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good catch.
But yeah, that's the idea, to understand what the impact is going to be on the private side of the parking.
So would it impact it could impact our permit process and the whole?
It could. I mean, it's potential.
I mean, there's a lot of thought that goes into that. Obviously, overnight parking, and I know there are many people on the board, most of us, I think, not including me, that want to eliminate the overnight parking. Has been talked about. I've heard various comments, but from a safety standpoint, there's an issue. Legal is another, obviously, but also the amount of revenue we collect on that, again, is enormous. So it would have a wide-ranging impact on this village and how we operate and what taxes people pay potentially, and so really it's going to be very carefully thought, and I'm sure it will be. So thank you for bringing that up. I just want to understand on these pillars as we discussed them here. So there's no one pillar over another right now. It's just kind of are we prioritizing? We're not prioritizing.
The pillars are not prioritized, but I know there's a discussion.
Okay.
Potentially
I mean, they're all kind of. I see them almost as instead of a 1 to 10 or whatever it is, 1 to 7. More of a. They're all important on a horizontal type of a framework, right? As opposed to ranking them. I mean, I would argue that communication among organizational effectiveness is very, very important. And I'd also say that economic vitality is really, really important. It's an engine that drives our economy and desirability of living here. So they're all important, and I don't know how you would actually make those calls other than saying they're essentially all equal or considered similarly.
Have in the past, if not on the last version, we will on this one. When we format, we do say people can see right up front that these are not in any particular priority order.
Okay. So really, I think this reflects fairly the discussion we had, and I don't have any great inputs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Corey?
All right. A few things here.
Did I put a time limit on this yet?
Yeah, no. I'm already grandfathered then. Actually, I don't have a whole lot to say, but I did want to address what I heard about prioritization. I know Trustee Eater brought it up, and there's this thing called even over statements that I think would be really useful if we wanted to go down that road, because there's nothing on here that anybody's going to look at and say this isn't important, right? But the question is, what is it more important than to you, right? And that doesn't mean that economic vitality is not important to you, but maybe economic vitality is even more important than sustainability in the context of generating revenue or whatever the statement turns out to be, right? Is a way of acknowledging that all of the topics that we're going to talk about are important, but that there is still some ability to prioritize them personally. So that I think that the helpfulness is twofold. One, to staff, when you're bringing things back to us, you understand like where various people fall on various different things that are going to come before us, and also to the community. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think the goals are great. I mean, obviously I was there, right? I wish we had formatted them a bit differently, because in some ways they're not actionable in some ways, right? They're kind of generalized. So one of these is fully operationalize the Office of Economic Vitality. I know what that means, but what does that mean, right? And so what I mean by that is, when I'm working with a client, right, we're like trying to capture requirements. There's a standard like what we call a story writing formula, right? It'd be like, as a board member, I want economic vitality so that the community can remain affordable, right? Like that sentence there gives us the who I am, what I want, and why, right? And so obviously I'm not going to push for that to change any of these today. It's just a way that I kind of conceptualize how I think it would be more useful in the future communicating for everyone, right? Like if you know the stakeholder that you're dealing with and what they want and why they want it, like it helps you deliver it better, right? And that's, when we're talking about us delivering to the community, you all delivering to us delivering to you, right? Like the whole 9 years, everyone has a bit more comprehensive understanding of why they're being asked for, or what they're being asked for. That makes sense?
Yeah, and it does. But we want to speak to the document. There are some constraints. So like when you look at that statement about operationalizing economic vitality, there's a lot to it, and a lot of it is packed into the economic vitality strategic plan.
Yeah.
But it essentially speaks to the policies, programs, and practices that need to be organized, made official, some of which may need to come to the village board, building out the staff, which we've done.
Right.
Right. So those are things that need to happen in order to make it a full-scale operation and that implements all our goals and objectives. And I think the last time around, we had actually a lot of sub-points in the plan that actually spoke to all those individual things that need to happen. Let's say, oh, we need to develop, we don't really have a formal acquisition and disposition policy. The board hasn't given direction on like a standard practice for that, and we think it would be useful for us to have that. It would make things more efficient and support the staff and give more clear direction. That's just one example. You know, do we want to really take a look at putting a formal framework together on that defines how we look at incentives to support development in real estate development and business development, right?
Right.
You know, that doesn't exist in the village, but it's really, you should have that as part of your operations.
Right.
You know, what are the suite of programs that we provide and implement that relates to retaining businesses, right? Reactive and proactive. What is our suite of programs that relate to engaging minority and women-owned businesses? So all of that has to be standardized and made clear to the board, so the board has clear line of sight on what do we actually do to actually effectuate all those things,
right,
and clear to the public. So it's hard to put all of that in here. So we say, oh, we need to operationalize economic development or vitality.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
And there's a lot of work to that, and you know, we've made a lot of progress, but we've got a lot of work to do on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you and I've talked about this extensively, right? So I kind of already knew what like goes into the operation, you know what I'm trying to say. And so I get all of that, right? Just, you know, I picked on that one because it's the first thing I saw when I looked at my iPad. Though there is, I will pick on this one specifically. Retain, grow, and attract businesses, including small women, veterans, minority-owned enterprises, et cetera, right? I love this goal. We put it here. I would like to have some kind of metric on what that actually means, right? I don't know where we are now, but I'd like to know where we are now and then what the growth of that looks like for success.
Good evening, Village Board President Skaman, Manager Jackson. Michael Murtis, Economic Vitality Administrator for the Village. So in regards to the MWV business enterprise question, firstly, we have been extensively tracking both our business attraction efforts and retention efforts in the community. And so for those businesses in the community that we have been tracking and visiting and meeting with and exchanging emails with, we've also been tracking whether or not they are minority-owned, whether or not they're women-owned, whether or not they're veteran-owned as well. And in some cases, obviously, there's overlap there as well. I can speak to just since the beginning of the year that 70% of the existing businesses we've spoken with are either minority-owned, women-owned, or some combination of that as well. So just to give you one example of how we're tracking that. In terms of business attraction and maybe future retention as well, too, the Economic Vitality Strategic Plan that is moving forward certainly identifies particular objectives to help us move that forward, such as perhaps financial opportunities. That's an opportunity for us to engage with financial institutions in the community as well, to maybe look for incentive programs or other channels that we can do to bring more businesses like that in the community and help them enhance themselves.
Got it. Appreciate that.
Sure.
So yeah, that was a great answer. And then so there's then the point after that, right, is encourage and support redevelopment in real estate, business investments, priority areas, underutilized sites, et cetera, right? It would be helpful to know what those priority areas and underutilized sites are, right, so that we can then track back to the efforts that go against that. And I don't need it tonight or whatever. It's just in general, like as we measure this goal over the next 2 years, that would be something I think would be effective or helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Hold on a second. Got another thing here. My iPad's acting screwy. There we go. This is what happens when I write notes. So on vibrant, diverse, connected neighborhoods, right? So the priority one is support sustainable advancements of affordable housing. No, sorry. Point A, reevaluate single-family zoning, land uses, relative missing middle opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. There's no goal. What's the goal of doing what? right? I don't think we got that far in the session. I don't think that's a staff thing. I think it's a board thing, right? In terms of. Yeah, but it's not in the first one, right? So, so reevaluating it is, I assume, because we want to add housing supply, but I'm not sure that it always comes out that, it's housing supply. Sometimes it's affordability, sometimes it's this other thing, right? And like when we're doing zoning reform, there's a lot of different levers, right? There's a lot, and there can be a lot of different targets that we're trying to hit. And so I think it helps spelling out if we're trying to add housing supply, or if we're trying to control costs, or if we're trying to eliminate the racism in zoning, or if we're, right, like what's the ultimate goal of the project that or the priority that we have here, just so we know when we hit it.
Yeah, and Craig, you can speak to it too, but we have 9 goals in the adopted strategic vision for housing. And those goals are all captured here with all these initiatives, right? And it gets at the issue of affordability. It gets at the issue of supply, missing middle, the addressing the gap in home ownership by race and ethnicity. Like, it's all captured with these, right?
Agree. Yeah, it's definitely there. I think so. Maybe from that perspective, if this goal said then, as per the the housing strategic plan, that's right. Then it all comes together.
And you'll have a presentation from them on the 10th.
Yeah, next week.
Kind of to give you kind of an overview of where they are and what they've been doing and what they're trying to achieve. So
awesome.
We'll get an update. It's not the final product, but it's just an update of where they are at the moment.
That's awesome. You should bring popcorn.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I have. Otherwise, I think these are great, and I won't belabor the point. We already talked about a lot of this. So yeah, racial equity priority 4, enhanced cultural belonging. I would like to see that as, say, something like enhanced cultural belonging as measured by the triannual survey, or something like that, right? That we have or if not that, then something else that we can utilize. But I think that's a good one because we already have baseline data there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We can look at that. So with
we do the triannual.
I'm catching up.
Village survey.
It's that survey that we do every 2 years. Yeah, and I don't where we are.
2 or
where
3?
are we, Dan, in the cycle of that? Let's speak to it right now. So I know the one point you want to speak to is our opportunity to actually have questions in that survey that actually can really get at that question that you're raising about whether people feel connected and whether they feel like they belong. So we want to make sure that the instrument is actually capturing feedback to get that baseline so that we can measure it 2 years later.
Yeah, so we're planning to do it this year to answer the question. And then there's a certain, so there's a baseline set of questions so that you can measure against the national answers, the national responses. And then there's, I want to say it's somewhere in the range of 10 to 20 questions that each entity can come up with on their own to determine, its own kind of set of criteria. And then you can have those questions. The last time that we did it was, I think, actually 2023. So we can look at those kind of questions, and if there's some that maybe don't make sense anymore, we eliminate those, add some new ones. If there's some that need to be added again so that we can see where we were in 2023 or in 2026 compared to 2023, we can do that.
Okay, perfect.
But so we'll go back and look at that too and try to clarify and be very specific. But I understand the idea of trying to get a baseline on community sentiments around belonging. Right. And then trying to measure that over time.
Correct.
That, in a way that, captures the interventions or the initiatives that we're advancing, are they having an impact?
Absolutely. Yes. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I'm not going to repeat things that have already been said, and my colleagues have done a pretty good job of going through the document. I want to call out just a couple of things. One of the things that I really appreciate about this is a lot of these priorities sort of lean on each other and speak to each other across across these groupings. And for instance, when we're talking about community affordability and our long-term financial planning process, looking at village revenue sources to identify possible alternative revenue sources that can support all of these strategic priorities. Because I think one of the things we're always focused on is affordability and all of the various levers we have to reach affordability, because some of that is the way we've been able to keep the levy down, and some of that is with programmatic offerings that address affordability concerns with specific parts of the community. And so, this document does speak to all of those pieces that overlap. And then on the, I was also just very excited under organizational effectiveness, page 30. It's kind of boring, but in local government, a lot of times boring is good. Priority 2, maintain high quality core services across the village. Because I think that, we are a board, we are a community that wants to do a lot of good and important things, but specifically calling out that we have a priority of going and doing the good and important things and continuing to do the good and important things that everybody expects, like maintaining roads in good condition, picking up the trash on time without damaging garage doors, all the basic stuff. So one thing I was, we were just talking about, like, assessing with the triannual survey. I do like in priority 2, it says I think that's probably just a numbering issue. This should be A. Assessing baseline services. I think it might be, maybe it doesn't need to be annually, but just like using Engage Oak Park just to get people, take people's temperature on how they feel about their local government with regard to trash pickup. Just trying to get a sense of those things, so we know where people as a general group, as opposed to the people who maybe we hear from most often, how they feel about how trash collection is going for them, how road maintenance is going for them, whether there are specific concerns that we might not hear because we're only hearing the stuff that people want to yell at us about, as opposed to the stuff that maybe is just a back of the mind thing that they're only going to hear because we proactively push stuff out to ask.
So, yeah, I can kind of point something out, and I just want to really highlight this, and I mean, we can kind of do a better job of marketing it as well, but one of the first projects we created on Engage Oak Park was called Love It, Fix It, Create It. So that was kind of designed as sort of a catch-all feedback where people can kind of go on the map and point to whether it's your residents because you're dealing with traffic pickup or something on or a trash pickup, or a traffic signal or something like that, and people can do this. We do periodically get feedback from folks through this tool, not as often as some of the other projects that we're regularly sort of promoting and engaging on. This is sort of our initial one, create it so we had something to point to when we started Engage Oak Park. But to your point, we can kind of continue to remind people that this tool is out there for anyone to use at any time too.
Yeah, and I think that's that's good, but I guess what I'm speaking to, here, this particular priority that I love so much is just talking about those baseline services, and just having sort of a approval survey and trying to get some both the quantitative, like, what level of approval do you have on some of these baseline services, and then also some qualitative, like, what do you think could be improved? Like, if the truck could not honk at every at every alley when it exits for the garbage truck, that'd be great. Like, some of the stuff we sometimes hear in our emails, but if we're actually making a push to bring in that feedback on baseline services from people who don't necessarily reach out to us, I think we'll get a broader, maybe more interesting swath of feedback. And so that was something that came to me as I was looking at this assess baseline services, where we can get a barometer on the stuff that we don't generally spend as much time talking about at this table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's always true of every survey, but like,
If you put it on the website, it would.
Put your mic on.
Yeah. Oh, so I think there might be some opportunities with our existing community survey that was just brought up. I think we capture some of that to the extent, but maybe we can take a look at it in the context of trying to make sure we have specific questions around baseline services. But I think we're already capturing some of that information. And Dan, if I'm not mistaken, I think we do get feedback from the community in that survey about
the triannual.
They're feeling right.
Yeah, I think it's a little. Yes, we do get that feedback. I think it's maybe not as
granular.
Yeah, exactly, granular as you're kind of seeking out. It's kind of a little bit black and white, but it does touch on those topics. To your
public safety, other types of categories of services to parks.
Right, and it talks about. I mean, there's even questions, and again, this is when you think about it, it's the National Community Survey because communities are structured differently. Like there's a whole section about parks too that is asked, which the village, we have a separate park district that's a separate taxing body here in Oak Park, but we get that feedback as part of that survey, just as sort of the baseline package for the entire thing.
But I think there's some opportunities to maybe look at it and maybe add some questions or so to it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Trustee Enya?
You never get to unmute quick enough. Sorry. No, I largely agree with a lot of the other trustees. I think it's a great practice that we've been going over. Possibly ranking some of these things might give for opportunity. There's not something on here that I don't see as necessary. I do appreciate on the last page where we're talking about the Welcome Center, but also talking a little bit more about the civic engagement and continuing to see how do we engage our community to not only just participate in surveys, but also participate in our government and our community, and finding ways to continue to make our community better and see how do we get more people involved. So wanting to see that continue to grow because I think we do a really good job of that. But yeah, I think we're doing, a good job of sorry, hold on one second.
Motion to hold on 1 second.
I empathize when I try to be.
Apologize.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Yeah. No, largely, like I said, agree with my fellow trustees. I think that there is, it's a great practice that we continue to do every few years, and I think we've really built in some opportunities for us to expand on some of these you know, long awaited board goals. But I think I think that we've put together a good outline and roadmap for this, and just am eager to kind of see some of these things formulate.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say, when I try and participate in a meeting from home, I have John on speakerphone in the next room, the dog barking, the TV on. I can only do it if I'm home alone, which defeats the purpose. So,
Oh, Kobe thinks he's going to get to vote in the next one. He's been looking at me the whole time pretty eager, and he just doesn't have a mic, so I apologize.
You're good. You're good. Okay, so, okay, good comments. Exciting goals. I think we have, so the village board is divided up into 3 committees: personnel, finance, and reimagining government. And so then I identify 3 people for each committee that, and, you know, personnel and finance tend to be self-described, but we don't really have a purpose statement so much for the reimagining government committee. And so that's Brian, Jenna, and Derek, and myself. So I'm going to suggest we convene that committee. We can talk about what its purpose is, and whether there's an opportunity for prioritization discussions through that, or other opportunities for efficiencies in how we operate and how we engage with our staff to accomplish these goals. I don't have much to add to what is presented or what's been stated. I would just a little bit of caution that when Mark Blessoff came to speak to us about the prioritizing of and actually having in our goals and values our considerations for our aging population, it was because he wanted us to be extremely intentional about that acknowledgement. So with that, I would just put a little effort in maybe reaching out to him or putting some thought into making sure that we hit that, because it is a significant population of our community. And as it's already been said too, you know, we've got all of these lofty goals, which I do think we can accomplish, but we also have the day-to-day. And we have making sure that everybody has access to government, and we put a lot of good, had a lot of conversation and efforts and willing to invest in that. So I don't want to miss out on making sure that that is represented. Okay? The Envision Oak Park, there were some things in that, like a cultural arts center, that now my colleagues have started to hear me want to talk about, that was listed in that 2014-2015 document that our community was asking for a cultural arts center. So I'm not going to ask that to be inserted here in this document in any way, but I'll communicate out loud that it is something that I'm interested in identifying opportunities for as part of an economic vitality agenda, or an overlap in, I've also talked about in that economic vitality how Chicago Avenue is really laid out, highlighting the arts between Frank Lloyd Wright, adding an architectural aspect to their new addition, the Oak Park Art League. We are a community that has heavily invested in the arts for decades, and I don't think we capitalize on it for tourism quite enough. And so I see a cultural arts center as also being a key piece to a lot of our investments in inclusion and DEI, and to have that physical space that actually represents our values there seems to be something that we're missing as a community. So there, I'll just put that out into the universe. And if there's no further comments, so we should be, Derek.
Just to bring it around, since I heard there is general interest in the prioritization, and I love the idea of using the reimagining government as a space to do that. While we were all talking, I made a little spreadsheet, and I will send it to everyone if it's helpful to you to fill out. And it's just got all 25 priorities grouped and color-coded by pillar.
But he was still listening to you guys talk.
I can multitask, absolutely. So if that's useful, I was going to use it to organize my own thoughts. So I'll send that around to the board, and if folks want to fill it out, you can, and it might be helpful to themselves.
Or if we can get that committee meeting started quickly, then you could share it with the committee. Or the committee is Brian, Derek, Jenna, and myself. Then we could just kind of take a look to see if there's anything we would tweak about it before you go ahead and send it to everybody. Okay? And then, because there, well, but that would be a task then, of that committee kind of receiving that information, right? You know? Okay. And reporting out during the boards and committees part of the agenda that never has a report out on. Lisa?
No, I was just gonna say, so then, yes, we will take, there's a few areas you pointed out that we could just further revise, and so then we will do that and put it on the consent on the next agenda.
Wonderful. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. Any
Next
last
available
comments?
agenda, I mean,
Yeah, whenever it's on consent. Then that means that we're not necessarily voting on it this evening. Okay, so
That's
then
correct.
I will move to, but thank you all for joining us this evening. Unless you want to hear our call to board and clerk. Clerk Waters?
Pass.
Early voting is underway.
I know, and I do want to say that there were record numbers the first day.
Oh my God, really?
204 early voters come
How many?
by. 204, which over the past, like if you look at the gubernatorial numbers in 2018, they were approximately, I want to say like 122, and then in 2022, I want to say they were about 110. So to have 204 in 2026, I think says a lot. So thanks to all of the staff who have been so welcoming to everyone. It is a really, really big deal for our community as well as our surrounding suburban Cook County communities to be able to come to Village Hall to vote early.
Wonderful, and it looks great down there. You got the selfie booth that you can take your picture and post out there and encourage everybody to have a plan. Oh, Trustee Enya first, I'm sorry. Trustee Enya.
Just want to, send our deepest and most sincere, heartfelt feelings out to Faith Julian, who is battling terminal cancer, and we just want her to know how much this community loves her family, and wants to just send her all of our best wishes. Been to the hospital multiple times and visited with her, and she's just, loves this community so much and wants everyone to know just how much she cares about everyone and in the community, and has been just a huge supporter of Oak Park for so many years. Her family just been so dedicated to the village of Oak Park, and want to also really give my heartfelt thanks to Trustee Taglia, who's been just so supportive of the Julian family and just doing everything he possibly can to help honor their wishes, and being just a great neighbor, friend, and community member here. I really am proud to serve with you, Jim.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank our DEI staff for the absolutely incredible Black History Month celebration this past Saturday. It was just a deeply moving and inspiring event to be at, and I really appreciate all of the hard work that went into putting that together. And I would like to reiterate the comments regarding the importance of making a plan to get out to vote. We've got 2 weeks left in the primary elections coming up. I say 2 weeks left rather than 2 weeks until, because we don't really have an election day anymore. Early voting means that we've got an election period. So you should make a plan. You should look at when your early voting site here at Village Hall is open, or how you're going to plan to mail your ballot such that it is actually delivered before Election Day rather than postmarked by Election Day. And you should also make a plan, if you'd rather vote in person on Election Day, make a plan to do that. Theme is make a plan, yes. That's it.
I want to give a shout out to Manager Jackson, who apparently is trying to kill me by putting historic preservation and missing middle on the same agenda. So tune in next week. That's going to be a nice board meeting.
Okay. It's a little different.
Just wanted to echo Trustee Inya's thoughts about Faith Julian, the Julian family, Kathy Julian. And thank you for your support and President Skaman's support and Congressman Davis's support and all the people that have, and Representative Ford's support for stopping in and seeing her. And to have this happen during Black History Month is a very difficult thing to have to deal with, and she's doing the best she can, and but she's holding in there, so we can please send your prayers. I will just mention one other thing on a totally different plane, but we talked about a growing, a future, I think we called it a structural deficit in the village, with the revenues and expenditures coming into focus in a few years where they're really not going to match. And we're already looking at a number of projects and prototypes drawing from our general fund balance, and we want to also supplement the sustainability fund, which is important. And we're also now looking at a potential loss of revenue, maybe, I don't know, with this People Over Parking Act, and how that may impact the village's finances in the future. And all these things are really going to be issues that are going to be in the forefront that we'll have to really, really look at carefully, because we talk about new revenue, additional revenue. It's so difficult. And President Skaman's idea about the museum tax is something I would support, but that alone won't right the ship, obviously. So there's a lot to talk about in the future and to think about. Thank you.
Happy birthday tomorrow to Trustee Straw. I would like to echo your congratulations and description of a wonderful Black History Month event on Saturday. So thank you to Kelly, Cassandra, Shalanda. I really enjoyed it and appreciate all the hard work that went into it. It was a Black History Month. I also felt very Oak Park Black History Month, and it was wonderful. So I also wanted to mention I'm wearing blue tonight because March is the National Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. I lost somebody last year who I love very much to colon cancer, and so I will not miss an opportunity to remind all of us to to get our screenings on time and regularly, and to encourage those around you to do the same.
I'll build off Trustee Wesley's comments. If you're excited about the 10th, the 18th, we're going to talk about the Sustainability Fund, which will hopefully be very productive, very good conversation. And then we're also going to be talking about the Roosevelt Road presentation as well the following week, which I live right next to. So very action-packed month. So then we'll earn that vacation a little bit in April. When we, at least the board will. I know the staff will continue to work diligently. So yeah, I'll leave it with that. Oh yeah, we're at war with Iran, so we shouldn't be doing that. So stop the illegal war.
I feel a vacation coming. For me, anyway. No, or at least those time limits on speaking. So, no, I'm joking. Well, maybe not. So, that'll be part of the goal, Reimagining Government Committee. But here for all of the conversation, of course, and think that all three of those topics are going to be quite fruitful and that we're ready for them. So it's all good. And so, yes, please have a plan to vote. And you can look on the village website too, I know, for our hours here. But the one thing that I'm sure Clerk Waters is going to constantly remind is, so it's a little early, but election day is at your polling place, not at the Village of Oak Park. This is early voting only. And then I'll just reiterate that, myself and Trustee Taglia and Trustee Anya all have been visiting Faith regularly. Jim has been a lifelong friend with the family, and really, it's been actually an amazing time to be able to spend with Faith and listen to her stories as she is in the hospital right now. And so thank both of them for their partnership in that and for always being there for her. And we'll have a proper proclamation for her next week so that hopefully she can participate. And feels like there's more to share, but I'm just going to celebrate that's not quite 10 o'clock yet and say entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night. I know.